Defense wins in the playoffs. From the second the rules changed decades ago, that's the way it's been. But can the Oilers buck that trend? Here's Martin Biron. Marty, when the Oilers reached the Cup final last year, they had a goals against of under 3. Now their GAA is almost 5, and yet they're still tied at 2 games apiece with the Kings. Can the Oilers really outscore their defensive woes and survive?
Well, if there's one team that can, it's the Edmonton Oilers because they have Draisaitl and McDavid. They have Bouchard, right? And look, you don't want your goals against average to be near 5. You'd love to have that a lot lower. But when you look at the way the Edmonton Oilers have had success in those 4 games, and you go back to game 1, being down in the third period and all of a sudden turning it up, tying it. I know it's a heartbreaking loss, but still, you're able to really create some offense in the third period of game 1. How about game 3, third period offense? Game 4, third period offense. It's all about playing desperate to score goals. And I think you have to understand that, well, maybe your defensive side of the game is not going to be perfect. And maybe goaltending is not going to be perfect. Calvin Pickard hasn't been great, but he's won a couple of games. So you have to take chances. The Oilers are at their best right now when they have only one thing and one thing in mind is to score goals. Look at how they dominated the Kings in the third period of game 4. Desperate hockey team needing to get that win. They don't want to go down 3-1 and having to go back to LA for, the deciding game. So they turned it on offensively. They controlled puck play. They took chances. Obviously, even Evan Bouchard at the end of the game, 3-2, Quentin Byfield has the puck. He takes a chance. The Oilers are successful right now when they take chances. And these games are not going to be 2-1 hockey games. So how do you score more goals? You have to take chances, and that's the way the Oilers are bucking the trend right now, and it's been working for them.
Speaking of taking chances and bucking the trend, they went away from the number 1, Calvin Pickard. Calvin Pickard is 2-0 with an .889 save percentage, is taking over the net. Stuart Skinner, supposed to be their number 1, 0-2 save percentage, just barely over .800. We know Pickard gets the net tonight. Barring injury, is this now Pickard's net win or lose tonight, or does Skinner get another shot?
I believe it's Calvin Pickard's net right now in round 1, win or lose. And I think you have to look at all the situations. You win game 5, obviously he's won 3 in a row. You're coming back with Calvin Pickard in game 6. You lose game 5, well, you know what? He's won you 2 out of 3, and both games that he's won them at home. You're coming back home for game 6. He's probably your goalie again. The only scenario I feel like you could see Stuart Skinner come back in the net is, let's just say the Oilers win game 5 and it's a 6-5 hockey game and Calvin Pickard gives up 5 goals. And then you have to go to Pickard again in game 6 because you're like, hey, he's won 3 in a row. And then he gives up another 4 or 5 goals in that game and you lose. Now game 7, you may have a decision to make. But until you get to that scenario, I think you're looking at Calvin Pickard as your guy for game 5, 6, and potentially game 7, depending on how it goes. And Stuart Skinner is going to have to wait until the second round if he has a chance to get back into the crease. And look, that's fine. I think Stuart Skinner would say, I want to make sure my team is going to win. I'll get back in the nets if I see an opportunity. I'll continue to work hard, but it's not right now. And everybody wants to play. Skinner is looking at his coach saying, I want to get in. I want to play. But that's not the time right now. Calvin Pickard has won you 2 games. It wasn't perfect, but I think that's his net for the rest of the first round, regardless of what happened in game 5.
I want your take on something that's unfolding inside the Kings room. The Kings led going into the third period in game 3, gave up 4 unanswered, lost. The Kings led going to the third in game 4. They gave up 3 unanswered, lost in OT. Jim Hiller was asked about it, and he got pissed, saying, next question. We know what Hiller thinks about his team's late collapses. What's your take on it and his comments in particular?
Well, I think the LA Kings have been great defensively all season long because they stick to a system. They're really tight in a 1-3-1 or they're passive 1-2-2, and they don't give much room to the other team. Well, the other teams in the regular season weren't always the Edmonton Oilers. I feel like you have to change the way you play when you have McDavid and Draisaitl on the ice and being able to get the puck away from it, take time and space away from them. And so when I listen to Jim Hiller's comments, I think very frustrated coach right now. Frustrated in maybe his team's play. But as the coach, you guide your team towards a system. You guide your team towards a certain way of playing the game when you're up. And right now, it's not worked. I also think that he's still thinking about the challenging game 3 at 4-4, and that cost the Kings the game because the Oilers scored 10 seconds later on the power play with Evan Bouchard scoring to make it 5-4. So both games in Edmonton have been impacted by the way Jim Hiller is coached, either by his decision to challenge a goal that was clearly a good goal, don't know why he challenged that, and then his inability to adjust the way that his team was playing in the third periods, and even at 3-2. And you see that your team is not generating anything. Maybe it's about slowing things down and about changing your system. He's not been able to do that. So there's some frustration, and the Oilers have to play on that frustration, not just on the players, but on the coach, and push them in a position where they're going to be even more frustrated.
Speaking of comments in the postgame, McDavid was obviously fired up after the big comebacks. He said, I'm sure there are still a lot of people out there doubting us, but we like it that way. You've been in rooms when you've had the world against us mentality. Does that really play a role in drawing a team together and firing them up?
I think it does. Although you're not really talking about it all that often. It's not the main point of conversation, but there's going to be a comment in the locker room says, hey, nobody believes in us. Let's go. Let's go right away. And look, I was one of those doubters. At 2-0, I said the Oilers have no chance. They're probably not going to get it to game 6. They're probably going to lose this in 5 because the way the Oilers were playing didn't give me that confidence. But here's the thing. Now that it's 2-2, you're looking back at everything and said, man, those were a lot tighter games. Even game 1 could have gone the Oilers' way. The Oilers could be up 3-1 in that series, really, in the way that things shaped up. And the Kings could say the same thing. This is why right now it's up to, either teams to say, we could be the team that's going to make the difference. And if you want to play the role of underdog right now, the Edmonton Oilers, although you went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, so you should be the favorite pretty much. But okay, let's play the role of underdog and let's see if that works, because that's the way the Oilers have to play. They have to play carefree. We don't care, if we give up 4 or 5, we're going to try to score 6 or 7. That underdog mentality, but you have 2 of the best players in the world. So it's a little hard to believe that Connor McDavid could be an underdog and could act like one. I think anytime he's on the ice, he's always going to give his team a chance to win.
He doesn't mind playing that card, though. After taking the first 2 in LA, the Kings had to feel great about snapping their 3 playoff series losing streak to the Oilers in the opening round. But you got to believe the doubt is creeping in right about now.